what a different stage it is this year. Good afternoon, TEDsters. Can we turn up the house lights just for a second, please? You're all TEDsters. My name's James. Good afternoon, TEDsters. Fantastic. You can turn those down for a second. Wow. I've got to start off with a confession. Very simple confession. I'm a reformed academic. I know you're looking at me right now and you're saying, that guy's an academic? He's following in the footsteps of Thomas Lundgren of the One. He's here on stage, dressed like this. But no, it's true. I do have the shirts and the ties to prove that I am indeed an academic. I want to talk to you about ideas. And that's another issue that you say, an academic's got ideas? How can that be? You've all been to school. You've all graduated from some college, maybe a university, maybe a high school, maybe you're still going. And one of the things that you start to think about is, how many ideas did you actually activate in that environment? I'm sorry to say, exactly. I heard that, none. There's none. So the question that you've got to be asking is, what could this reformed academic have to share with you? I want to tell you my story, a story. And it starts in September 2000 when I'm hired by Zayed University to teach in the College of Communication and Media Sciences. A lot of Zayed people here, fantastic. I came from Carleton University in Ottawa, Concordia University in Montreal, and Université de Montréal, where I did my PhD. I studied under the best. I watched, I listened, I learned. And I came to Zayed University wearing this, and I got in front of my classes, and I was probably the worst teacher on the planet. Now, hold on, I'm going to preface this, because I learned from the best. And I would go into my class, and I would have enormous amounts of readings prepared for my students. I would have spectacular PowerPoints with the most words you've ever seen on them. I would make great quizzes. I would do all these things. It was spectacular. And for 1, 2, 3 years, I engaged in the activity of teaching. I was really bad. It was awful. And I know my boss is here, Dr. Dan Johnson. I was awful. And I want to apologize to all the students who might be here who had me as a teacher then, because I have come around. I've learned. The change happened in September 2004. And I know this, I can tell you almost exactly when this change happened, because in September 2004, I was given this book, reimagined by Tom Peters, by Dr. Jack Hillwig. Dr. Jack Hillwig's in the house here. Can we turn on the lights? Let's see where Dr. Jack Hillwig is, because he's responsible for all this. There he is. There he is. Dr. Jack Hillwig gave me this book, reimagined by Tom Peters. And with the letter that came with the book, he said, James, read this book immediately, starting with chapters 15, 16, 19, and then chapter 12, and do it right now. Can you imagine? It was amazing. Well, I did. And what happened when I did that is, in a sense, I totally rebooted what I was doing. I totally started fresh. What this book contained was the inspiration to start thinking a little differently, to start thinking like that. Life is too short, so do something that matters. Well, things got really interesting, because as academics, we're trained to sort of follow a path, follow a pattern, in, out, 20 weeks, and it gets monotonous. Well, with Jack and Dr. Badran, we set out to really change the way we taught. And we created something called Zed Media Lab. MIT Media Lab, stole the name, it was great. Zayed Media Lab. Now it gets better, because we didn't ask for any permission, and what we did is we managed to get the college to schedule our classes, a writing class, a research class, and a design class, 3 classes, back to back. So all the students who were in all those classes together had to take the courses back to back. Starting from 9 a.m. going till noon, 3 of us taught the courses. And we taught them design, research, and writing. And in that whole process, we thought, what if we weren't just teaching? What if we were to wrap everything we're doing around ideas? Because life's short. We got to make the courses matter. We got to make our teaching matter. So we started doing it. It was great. It was fun. It was exciting. It was really exciting. Well, things happened. And it evolved. It changed. And for 18 months, we taught these courses, a year and a half, almost 2 years, and it really got good. And it was fun. Then, slowly, people started to move on. Jack moved back to America to teach at Marriott University, Marriott College. And Dr. Badran got working on things too, and then there was me, and of course, students hated it. They hated it. Sir, it's too hard. One time, oh, you're going to love this one. One time, we didn't give any marks until the last day. The last day, with their projects, we gave them marks. They hated it. Students hated it. Even when we did this impossible, because everything that we did was all based around being impossible. It was all based around being impossible. So even when we created these impossible projects, like the Zayed Memorial Room, where we got the whole university to create literally a memorial room to the first president of this country. Spectacular. They loved that, and they loved the thinking, but they did not like the work. And teachers, as we tried to bring more teachers into it, they didn't like the work either, because it was a long time to be in a class, because 3 professors were in the class all morning, twice a week. They didn't like it. Students didn't like it, teachers didn't like it, the administration hated it because it was a nightmare to schedule. So there we were, got this thing called Zed Media Lab. We started it. It was going great. And then it evolved. It evolved, and what happened? Reboot. We rebooted again. Well, I kind of rebooted, really, because it was just me that was left. I had Zed Media Lab this idea, but it was just me that was left. And I started doing Zayed Media Lab kind of things, but in 1-credit courses and 1-credit practical courses, and they were fun, they were kind of interesting, and it was kind of boring. Students kind of liked it, but they didn't, they were grumbling. What's the point? Where's this going? Who cares? And in my mind, I had this idea. I had this idea of what this was all about. And that's when it hit me. Well, it didn't exactly hit me. I was watering the grass, and it was somewhere between 2009, going to TED in Long Beach, and a little bit later. In fact, I can tell you exactly where it was. There was Malcolm Gladwell's TED Talk. Is the camera seeing this? There was Seth Godin's TED Talk. There was Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk. And my ultimate favorite one, for all you die-hard TEDsters, Clifford Stoll. Clifford Stoll with the Klein bottles. I don't make Klein bottles, but I do make these great shirts. And here, you can have one. This is James' original. It's yours. So, yeah. Clifford Stoll's, if you haven't seen his presentation, you got to go and look at it. Well, in that moment, and of course my favorite online video, Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech. Yeah, exactly. We've all seen it. And what does he talk about? Connecting the dots. You can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect the dots looking back. And in that moment, as I'm watering the grass, with all these speeches running through my brain, thinking about the Zayed Media Lab stuff, and where's it going, and why is it not working, I realize I've got the idea, but the students who are participating, they don't have the idea. Like so many things. How many of you have great ideas every day? Hands up? Oh, tons. How many of you make those ideas work every day? Hands up? Hardly. Exactly. Now, I figured out, not me, but through listening to all these people, I got a brainwave. I said, this is cool. I'm standing there. I'm going, I can't believe this is happening. It was magic. The problem with our ideas, and the problem with what I was doing with Zayed Media Lab, and what I was doing with all my classes, because I got to tell you something, and I know my boss is here, Dr. Marilyn Roberts. I know she's here. I teach every class like Zayed Media Lab. I kind of thrown away the playbook a little bit. I'm not doing it the same way, because it's got to matter. Life's too short. Teaching's too short. It's got to matter. So the problem with what we do in any context, not just education, because I've been trying this with everything, is that we have these great ideas, but we have no way for people to latch onto them. I know you're going to say, well, I've heard this somewhere else. I've heard Seth Godin talk about it. Exactly. This is not new. But we have these great ideas, and we have to slow them down. Now, for me, that's a big problem. Slowing down ideas is a huge problem because I'm just going from one thing to the other, and I don't want to stop. I'm like a train running out of control. So slow down the idea. So you've got, but not just slow the idea, you've got to freeze the idea. Throw it, think of the deep freeze on your fridge. You've got to open up the idea, put it in the deep freeze, and make it into a giant ice block. And at that point, you put the idea down in front of people. And you let them look at it. And you let them touch it. And you let them stand on it if they can. And in that process, as you're talking about your thing, that thing you love, the thing that just, you can't imagine the world without it, in that process, people are looking at that idea. And slowly, if you slow it down so it is going this slow, if you do that, because your mind's going, you slow it down so it's, you get that? That's nice, eh? You slow it down. Then the people who are around you are going, well, that's not a good idea. But then they start to think about it a little bit because you're giving them some time, because they're looking at this frozen idea. And they go, I get how it works. And then slowly they're looking at it. And this is what's happening with my students. Sometimes it works, sometimes I don't slow it down enough because I've been experimenting lots of years now. So they look at the idea and they start going, I see how that can go. That's kind of interesting. And once you've got them hooked, the problem is there's no roadmap. You don't quite know when you've got them hooked. You've got to really be listening and paying attention. But once you've got them hooked, just that small group of people with that frozen idea, then you pick up the idea, you put it on the stove, and you turn on the gas, and you start to let it dethaw. And as the idea dethaws, it starts to speed up. And all those people who have just now been looking at it and feeling, I can see that. And as it warms up, they can touch it again. And what happens when they start to touch it? They become part of the idea. So this was the thing. I'm going, I figured this. You get people to touch the idea. They become part of the idea. And as soon as they warm up and become part of the idea, they love it. And when someone says, that's not a good idea, they say, no, let me explain it. And then they take a piece of that idea, they freeze it down, and let other people look at it because they tell the stories and connect to it. And then they warm it up for them. So the key to making ideas work is, these guys said, freeze it and start to warm it up. So then you start to warm it up. It becomes really cool, right? You warm up this idea, and it starts to move really, really, really fast. Just like, I'm going a mile a minute. It starts to move really fast. So then what you do to really make it take off is you get your trusty barbecue lighter and you spray it on it. Anyone ever done this to a barbecue? You get your coals and you spray it on it. Then you got to stand back because when you light the match, it goes, whoosh. That's what you've got to do the idea. Now, I wasn't doing this. I was just throwing the idea out there. You got a 20% of your grade. It's built onto this idea. You got to make it work and get done with it. And students, I don't want to do it. Why would I do that? This is terrible. And they do a kind of job. And then I'd sort of give them a mark, and they'd get an okay mark. And then they say, okay, that's done. And then they leave it. So what did I do? Slow down the idea, saying, okay, ideas have to matter, and it's got to be something that matters to you. So I kind of find a thing that I think might matter, and it might change. And what happens then is it speeds up. Wow. It's magic when it happens. So what have I been doing? Going back to what Jack and I started with Badron, take impossible things, usually things that people, A, don't have any equipment for, B, don't have any training for, C, don't really know anything about, and D, don't think is possible. One of my favorites recently was something called This is the Sound of My UAE project, where I asked students to literally go out and record sounds with their mobile phones. Record sounds of the United Arab Emirates with their mobile phones, and then put a little introduction and a little conclusion behind it and make them work. It was amazing. It was amazing because the students who did this were brand new to the university. They didn't have any equipment. They didn't know how to use editing software. I didn't even tell them how to do it. just said, go do it. And we talked about other stuff. Listen to this example of Zayed Media Lab thawing an idea, heating it up, throwing gas on it. This happened in 8 hours of meetings, and I would suspect that what you're going to listen to happened in 20 minutes on a weekend. Listen to this.
This is the sound of my UAE. The rhythm I hear in the horse's steps, the rhythm that carries power, confidence, and beauty of my country. It reminds me of my country's steps that started as a power to change, a confidence of its achievements, and a beauty that we see and sense in our country.
That was what my students did in Zayed Media Lab. I know, it's incredible, isn't it? It's the power of ideas. We've all got great ideas, and someone asked me the other day, they said, is there such thing as a bad idea? It was Marwan who asked me that. Is there something that can possibly be a bad idea? No. Every idea is fabulous. Every idea is great. Every idea is amazing. You just have to slow it down so that people can grab a hold of it, so that people can become part of it. Anyone can do it. You can all do it. You can do it with business. You can do it with organizations. In fact, I've got a perfect example of this happening. TEDx. In 2009, Chris Anderson and the team at TED thought, why can't we create something where people like you can create your own TED experiences? I'm sure people said, it'll never work, it'll never happen. And so they slowed it down. They presented it at TED 2009. Presented it to TEDsters like you. Those TEDsters took it home. They let it warm up a bit. They got attached to it. They threw gas on it. Last year, we had the amazing, amazing TEDxDubai. This year, it's Hollywood. It's through the roof. That's the power of freezing an idea, warming an idea, throwing gas on it, and then getting people to get involved. It works in so many different ways. All you have to do is dream a little, reboot once in a while, and trust yourself. Thank you.